justice. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for culture. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for freedom. Ring the bell down there. I said to ring up the bell for the rhapsody. Ring the bell down there. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Hey. It's high time that you summon up the power. This time, bust it in the air bell. Well, look, I have a story to tell. Well, it's a long, long time now we fighting for freedom. Victory bound to come. Assemble the people, recite of the mission. Let we rock the rhapsody rhythm. Whoa, ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for justice. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for culture. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for freedom. Ring the bell down there. I said to ring up the bell for the rhapsody rhythm. Ring the bell down there. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Hey. Let the voice of the dumb press be heard over the world. Let the people's story be told. Well, it's a long, long time now we come out for action. Glory days come down. I come with my bell just to second the motion. Rock the rhapsody rhythm. Whoa, I ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for justice. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for culture. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for freedom. Ring the bell down there. I said to ring up the bell for the rhapsody rhythm. Ring the bell down there. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Hey. Let it hear, let it hear. Ring it in the House of Congress. Ring it in the Buckingham Palace. In the Kremlin and Washington. Ring it in the Vatican too, Lord. Oh, I ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for justice. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for culture. Ring the bell down there. Ring the bell for freedom. Ring the bell down there. I said to ring up the bell for the rhapsody rhythm. Ring the bell down there. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Ring it all over. Hey.
If you have a floater in your eye and you've also been prescribed glasses, you must see this now. A Nobel Prize-winning discovery from Dr.
Ring the bell, ring the bell. Ring the bell against injustice. Ring the bell against apartheid voters list, against extrajudicial killing, against corruption in government. Ring the bell against apartheid. It is now 18 hours 38 on another Monday evening. It is the 5th day of September in the year 2022. Welcome to another program of DAYCLEAN, Voice of the Working People's Alliance. Welcome to brothers Takuma Ogonse and Keith Branch. Brothers, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure, and a special welcome to our viewers.
Thank you, Kadaki. Welcome to everyone. Again, we don't have Brother Majid with us. He's recuperating from a slight illness, but we hope that he'll be back soon to join our trio in presenting the facts to you. Welcome again, and welcome to our viewers for your loyalty.
Thank you. Brothers, it's a lot happening. A lot is happening in apartheid Guyana. A lot of people are aggrieved by the recent declarations by the Coffee 250 and other social activists in the country that we have an apartheid government in this country. Not only did Anil Nandlal protest as Attorney General, but a lot of the PPP's associates have been protesting, some in a public manner, some quietly. Just recently we saw Eddie Boyer coming out and saying that there's no apartheid government in Guyana. There's no apartheid in Guyana. Opposition elements that are talking about an apartheid Guyana are trivializing apartheid. And my interpretation of my choice of word, disrespecting the South Africans who really and truly lived in an apartheid country. Question tonight is, are we trivializing apartheid? Are we behaving like the boy that cried wolf? Keith, you're on screen, so you can go first.
Just before Keith go, I think it is appropriate that the program and the WPA extend condolences for the passing of Rashi Jackson to his family, party that he supported. This is a special a special person who have played enormous role in building up the diplomatic defense of the country, particularly in the context where Guyana had no military might to stand up to Venezuela. Our real defense in effective terms was our diplomatic defense. And Mr. Jackson, along with others, play a very important role, and his passing is a great loss to the country. So the program and the WP as a party wish to join with all the Guyanese and Caribbean and international persons who have known Rashi, and join in solidarity with them, and also to say to his family, we understand your loss, and we salute Brother Jackson.
Thank you, Brother Owen. Keith?
Yes, I would like to support what Ogun said. I have never met the gentleman. I know that back in the days when demonstrations were in the street, his name came up regularly, and I think he was a math teacher before at Queen's College before he joined the Foreign Service. And from my recollection, he was a very good math teacher too. I learned that from some of the activists during those days. I know that he became a very staunch defender of Guyana's foreign policy and Guyana, just having independence and just becoming independent and not, as Ogun said, not having a standing army to fight Venezuela. We had to rely on our diplomatic power, and Rashi Jackson demonstrated a will to take that fight in support of his motherland. So I wish to support Ogun in expressing our condolences to his family. He has done well for Guyana diplomatically.
Thank you. Now to the question.
Yes. Your question was, is Guyana an apartheid state? And I would say no. Guyana is, if it continues on this track, if it continues trending in this way, it shall emerge as an apartheid state. I think the PPP is putting in the building blocks to create that kind of apartheid state. But let me be careful. We have to be careful because when you say apartheid to the international world, you have to prove that there is not just systematic human rights violations, systematic political repression of a particular ethnic group, but you have to prove that it is being legalized, and it's a system of legal government. And it may cause a lot of people to rethink how you're coming to these conclusions. So we should be really cautious. I know the Coffee 250 and Impada G had used the word rising, I think, the adjective to describe apartheid, and I think we emerging, and we should be careful to continue to speaking that term if we need to awaken the international community to what's happening in Guyana. Emerging apartheid state is, I think, where we're heading. There's a systematic program in the PPP. Somebody said to me, well, look, there's a black prime minister and so many other black ministers, but I reminded them that in Zimbabwe during the war for independence and fighting the apartheid in Zimbabwe, the white government had installed a guy named Abel Muzorewa. I don't know if you can remember that name. He was a bishop. Bishop Abel Muzorewa was appointed prime minister, but everybody and their dog knew that he had no power. The power still lie with the white racist regime, that never budged, even although Mozorio was prime minister. And it's the same, you know, you can appoint an African Guyanese as prime minister and give him nothing to do. I mean, major decisions in Guyana, as everybody knows, is not made by the prime minister. And the prime minister holds a constitutional position. The prime minister has a constitutional position. His portfolio, his designation is written in the constitution. No, he, apart from the attorney general and the prime minister, no other minister has any constitutional reference. So the vice president for all things, he is just another minister in the government. So the fact is that the prime minister, who is supposed to have a power second to the president, is a no-show, means that he's just there like Abel Mozoriwa, just for the window dressing. But I believe that from all indications, the fact is that the People's Progressive Party is gradually removing from the country any involvement in authoritative. Well, I should rephrase that and said they're removing Afro-Guyanese from every position of authority in Guyana. Therefore, this people cannot be serviced. All the black leaders in Guyana are being condemned. Every last one, except those that are in the PPP. As long as a black leader come forward, even those who have become silent since the APN new AFC last government, even those who are silent, they too have come in for their share of criticism. So you're demonizing all black people. And it is really noteworthy that a guy like Boyer, and he's not the only one, who is saying that, that you know, what the leaders of the African people in Guyana should say and do. And they want to select your leaders. Somebody wrote me and told me that that discarded MP from the PNC should become leader of the PNC because he understands what Guyana needs. You know, and by understanding Guyana needs, it means that he's sympathetic to the PPP and will do the bidding. So there's an emerging apartheid regime in Guyana. It definitely is. What's funny, what's noteworthy too, and I should say, I remember back in the early 80s, I wrote an article for International Magazine, and the subject of the article was Guyana creeping dictatorship. And then I met Chedi Jagan subsequently, and he had read the article, and he called me and he stopped me and praised me and said, yes, there is a creeping dictatorship here. So when you criticize the PNC government in those days and call it a creeping dictatorship, the PPP was happy. Now you call their government an emerging apartheid government, they're totally unhappy. But facts are facts.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Brother Owen, the same question. Your point of view.
If I understand the question was whether, based on the responses of the PPP elements, who seems to be arguing that we are misusing the word and we trivializing the thing, whether in fact we actually trivializing the use of the word apartheid. Now, I have two positions on this matter. Firstly, I don't believe that we should allow the other side, the PPP elements, to determine our narrative. And for me, I would ignore them and keep pressing the argument that I wish to make, to avoid being sidetracked. But there may have been some merit in anybody objectively raising whether Guyana is indeed an apartheid state when the matter was first raised, indicate by Coffee 250 to be the theme of the symposium, which was emerging apartheid state. You know, one could see how persons may want to know whether that is a justifiable position. But once the conference was held and the conference systematically explained what it meant in its theme, emerging apartheid, for me, matter end. We have done what we ought to do for the public, clarify what we meant by Guyana Guyana is an emerging apartheid state. We put apartheid in our local context, and we made it clear, okay, how we are using the word. And every people have a right to borrow language, whether it is in economics, social, politics, and to use it in their own environment, adopt it to their own environment. Once they define what they mean, and having defined what we meant, for me, the matter closed. The PPP them could argue till they get blue. For me, it matters not. If they want an argument and they want a response from me, they have to respond to what we define. And they can't tell me that the term apartheid historically hasn't evolved and have not been used in other jurisdictions outside South Africa. So for me, we haven't trivialized the use of the word apartheid. We adopt it to our domestic condition. We explain what we meant, and we provide the necessary evidence to support our justification. So for me, we haven't trivialized it.
Thank you. Let me add my 2 bits, and to say, as one of the persons, quite frankly, who has been taking the time to go into the communities, especially to highlight some of the goings on and the discrimination and the oppression and the division and the vindictiveness and the misuse of resources that is taking place in this society. I want to argue that the evidence is out there to support Guyana being an apartheid state, emerging or otherwise. I have a way of telling people, and Keith might agree with me here, because he's either man of the cloth or he has been in the service of lots of men in the cloth, of the cloth. Then a little sin and big sin, right? All of the trappings of apartheid South Africa might not be in this country. For example, apartheid laws, segregation laws are not on the books, but segregation is being practiced. Discrimination laws are not necessarily on the book, but discrimination is being practiced. And so when one looks around I am convinced that the trappings, all of the trappings are there. Let's talk, for example, about the allocation of resources. A lot of these folks who are coming out and say, you're trivializing this thing. They ain't got no apartheid here. Are folks who have benefited from a discriminatory allocation of resources. Good. Just today I received, for example, I received some photographs coming out of Barnwell, Mocha Arcadia, Barnwell. It's the first day of school. And when you look at what the children of that Afro-Guyanese community are forced to experience to get out to school compared to other communities, you have no choice than to conclude that this is pure wicked and vindictiveness. Right? And that kind of segregation, that kind of discriminatory allocation of resources, certainly one can ascribe to an apartheid state. I think in apartheid South Africa, they created boroughs, if it's the correct description. OG, you can help me here. Boroughs. Particular sections where blacks and sections where coloreds and so on live. And resources were allocated to them in a discriminatory manner. Right? And that is what we are experiencing in this country. And so, it's my firm belief. Here's an image, an idea of what I'm telling you about. This is Mocha. This is Barnwell. Can you seriously identify any other section of this country?
Hey, you showing us something?
Oh, yes, Kate, sorry, you won't be able to see it unless you're viewing the program itself. Unless I share my screen, which I haven't.
Okay, okay.
This is Barnwell. And these are children on their way to school. On the first day of school. This is a community that this administration went into when there was a tragedy, when those children were burnt to death in their homes, and committed to fixing the infrastructure. That's several months ago. But this is the state of that community's infrastructure. While on the coast, East Coast, I can tell you about, the very administration is creating roads where there were no roads and where there is no necessity or urgency for such roads. Right? So, the viewers shall determine for themselves, as I like to say, whether or not they see apartheid or they believe, like Boy and the others, that we are being trivial. Unless there is, Keith, if you wish to add, subtract, divide, or organ.
No, I just wish to say that I think we must not get sidetracked. There is no way somebody like Boyer would come out and agree with any criticism of the PPP, whether we describing the state as an apartheid state or emerging apartheid state, or we describing the PPP as discriminating against African people. Okay, Boyer is not an African. He is a beneficiary of the PPP government. Okay, and he would not politically, take our side on any profound matter. Therefore, what he says is neither here nor there for me. You know, I have a very one-tracted mind and a line of march in dealing with this situation. We must not be sidetracked by people who we know have no objectivity in the intervention. If an ordinary Indian person meet me and say, Ogon, this apartheid thing we are talking about, I understand. I think it exists in Guyana. I think I have a duty to engage that ordinary Indian comrade and try to offer some kind of explanation and some rationalization to satisfy his concern. But I have no obligation to people like Boyer, who are beneficiaries of the criminality and the racism of the government. I would not waste a minute with them elements.
Thank you. And so I come to the state of play, because when there is bad governance, people look to elections to remove that government, to bring about change in the governance structure. And so I come to the rally that was held at Golden Grove last Saturday, and especially to your presentation on the voters list and the need to have the voters list cleaned. And as you were making your presentation, you highlighted that there were 8 points of contention for the Working People's Alliance. Could you quickly share with the viewers, Ogon, the position of WP and these 8 contentions as we move forward, especially for those who weren't viewing the rally, and as a refresher perhaps for those who did see the rally?
Okay, in a nutshell, the WPA executive, looking at the situation as it's evolving in Guyana and looking at the issues that surface as important issues in the political engagement, highlighted 8 issues which we felt is very critical, in the sense that if you try to address one, you can't address one objectively without it impacting the other issues. So you can't apply a kind of separate, approach to dealing with any of those issues. And I will quickly read out, I mentioned them quickly as I remember them. The question of the voters list, GCOM, local government elections, electoral reform, constitutional reform, general election governance, and oil and gas. We felt that, look, if you look at any one of them and you just take one, you will see that if the opposition doesn't dig their feet in the sand and try to win on all of these 8, the opposition opened itself, to political defeat. Now, if you say, as some people are saying, and the PPP is contending that the elections, you could have fair and free elections with the present voter list. We in the opposition say, no, there's a no go. But if along the road, political parties are funny creatures. They say certain things, but whether they will actually stick to it to the end is always questionable. Because let me take something like local government. I guess parties who have representation in the NDCs and so forth see those positions as important to them because they're able to extend some amount of the influences through those institutions. So for them, it is of some value. So it is not, so if the opposition say, well, look, these elections are being held, people will go ahead with these elections, so we have to make a compromise on the voters list so that we could participate in the local government elections in order to maintain our standing in the NDCs. It sounds politically nice and sounds rational. But once you make that compromise, the PPP, as I said at the rally, will chop your neck out. You're going to lose. They're going to beat you badly. And then you're going to put yourself in an awkward position for the national elections because you can't enter the local government elections on that list and then believe you're going to be holding the moral high ground for the national elections. You're going to put yourself in an awkward. You can't carry your people to that part of the local government elections and they get decimated by the PPP and think you will have them ready to go in the national elections. Let me go to GCOM chair. We can't do all of them, but let me tell you the GCOM chair. The question of GCOM chair and GCOM as an independent body with the responsibility for elections. If for whatever reason the opposition decide and Mr. Alexander, Comrade Alexander, who is one of our most experienced commissioners in GCOM, I remember not too long ago he was on Dr. David Hinds' Politics 101. And in describing GCOM, he said that they're in a perilous state. He was making the point very clear that the PPP with the chair have full dominance in GCOM, so there's no level playing field. We know that. And we have seen the pattern. And if in spite of all of that, we make a compromise on GCOM and we don't make sure that we fix GCOM, then we set in the basis to lose the national elections. If we, for example, don't respond as an opposition with all our might to the proposed electoral reform that the PPP intend to do, and I just isolate one aspect where they want to divide Region 4, okay, into I think 4 parts. Now that is part of the PPP electoral strategy, okay, to defeat the opposition. And if the opposition is not alert enough and not of the conviction that we cannot allow Region 4, which is the opposition stronghold in electoral terms, to be tampered with and to be refashioned in the image of the PPP, and we don't declare an all-out struggle to stop that, then we creating the conditions for our own defeat at the elections, for the PPP dominate the oil and gas money, okay, for no significant constitutional reform that could give you power sharing. All the issues that I would have highlighted. If you don't struggle and make sure you win on them, it impacts everything else. So that is the point we were trying to make, that we are at a situation where we can't choose. And therefore, our best bet is to say, look, this is the reality, and we use this struggle over local government and the election list to have an all-out struggle for all the issues identifying, and to have the PPP come to the realization that we're not going forward in the normal way. And if it means bringing the country to a halt, we have to do it. Because failure to do it, okay, only enhance the PPP's domination in the equation. So you can't pick and choose. We are at a point where this is bottom line struggle. And you don't have to be a political scientist to understand that. and the local government give us the ample opportunity, okay, to begin the stampede. So that is our attitude towards those things.
Thank you. Now, today being the 5th of September, tomorrow will be the 6th of September, marks 2 years since the brutal murder, the mutilation of the Henry cousins. We know that in the attempt to solve, well, in the apparent attempt to solve this brutal crime, the Regional Security Network was invited to investigate, and they left basically with their tails between their legs, saying, well, you know, we did not get the full cooperation of the locals to get to the bottom of this matter. Of course, the RSS is here again in relation to allegations made by DION BASCOM. But while all of that is happening, the fact is tomorrow marks another death anniversary of the Henry boys. Are there any reflections, any observations, comments on the fact that 2 years hence, this brutal crime remains unsolved?
Kit, you should go take it.
Kit?
Before I address that, I would just like to support Brother Ogunse's statement that he made, and to let those listeners know that the points and the information given at the rally was the position of the Working People's Alliance. It wasn't an individual position. It was a position of the Working People's Alliance. We strongly believe that the points established is where we should go in terms of struggling for a clean voters list. We have to have a clean voters list. You cannot dally around it and say, well, you know, let's go into the local government elections and let's win a few NDCs, and then the PPP comes forward with the GCOM commission and says, you know, we're going to use the same list for general elections. I mean, what would be your argument? You already went into an election with that list. The fact is that the list is corrupted. The list is very corrupted, and it has to be changed. And that is our primary objective. No elections, no new list, no elections, local government or else. In relation to the RSS and its investigation, you know, it is really not only sad, but disturbing that for not quite 2 years, but 18 months, let's give them 6 months to investigate, and 18 months hence, there's not a word coming from the policemen, from the Ghana police force. Not a word. You know, the Stabroek News wrote an article about the minister in the Ministry of Natural Resources. And before the ink can dry in the newspaper, the policemen were there at the Stabroek News knocking on the door to investigate the journalists. There are many other instances across the country where the police seem to be, as we say in Ghana, they have on-track shoes. They come quickly to investigate. And here it is, 2 years after those boys and the Singh boy were murdered. And to date, they cannot even produce a statement. I have not heard what have happened with the coroner's report. Is the law in Guyana that any unnatural death should be investigated by the coroner? Where is the coroner's report? where can anybody find that report? The government did bring in the RSS, but as far as I read, the RSS were stymied in the investigation. They got no cooperation from the Ghana police force. They sat around twiddling their thumbs for days until they decided that it wasn't worth their while. They had other productive things to do, so they packed up and left. Again, now we have the RSS, and I'm sure that the same situation would prevail, that they would get no cooperation. And we have to be careful now because as far as I read, the RSS is not investigating the crime relating to paper shorts. They're investigating whether the process of investigation was done properly. So this is not investigating whether paper shorts got killed and who killed him, is whether the Ghana police force had the right processes in place to investigate the crime. So it's from the beginning, it's a non-starter, and it's regrettable that all these murders are taking place and there are no solutions, and there could be solutions. That's the problem. It's not like a burglar taking somebody's life in the middle of the night while robbing him. These are clear crimes where people have to be there. No one person could have killed those boys. No one person could have dragged them into the back dam and threw them there, because there were no signs, according to the lawyers, there are no signs that they died there. The amount of blood found at the place where bodies were found was not sufficient to indicate that that's where they died. Or at least that's where the injuries took place. So there have to be people around to take them there. So somebody should be able to start talking by now. As I said, it's regrettable that until such time, maybe as this government or another government widen the investigative procedure by inviting Scotland Yard or the FBI to come in and investigate, because I don't think that the police would be so obnoxious and slow-footed if the investigators were from Britain or the United States. Until such time, it would just be another report in the history books.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Brother Ogon?
Just want to say that we as a party and the program stand resolutely behind the Henry family and the Singh family and their extended community, their community. We are, like all patriotic Guyanese, are concerned at the slow pace in which this matter is being addressed. And that slow pace also had led to unfortunate tragedy involving another Henry brother under the influence, taking the law in his own hand.
Allegedly.
And we had allegedly taking the law in his own hand. And we had an unfortunate situation. It demonstrates the problem you have in this country once the PAP is in power. Nobody would deny, on the basis of the evidence, the way in which the Henry brothers were killed and the known circumstances, that it amounts to a hate crime. It have all the trappings of a racist racist action. and for no other reason. A progressive state and a government that is committed to non-racial behaviors and is concerned about race relations in the country would have treated that case as a major priority to demonstrate to the country and the world the government's steadfastness to strike out racism, to strike out crimes of hate. But what we saw right away this PPP doing what it always do. And it raised the question, okay, up to what extent there is political involvement, if not in the crime directly, but in the defense of those who commit the crime. And one is hard-pressed, knowing the nature of Guyana and our villages and our communities. I don't believe the PPP, the Guyana Police Force, and the Guyanese state don't know who carried out those heinous acts. I am hard-pressed to believe that the PPP, given their control in those areas and the fact that they have the ears on the ground, don't know who carried out those heinous crimes. But instead of using the information to demonstrate to the country and the world where it stands on these matters, no, they choose to defend the criminals. And in so doing, they politicize the action, they politicize the engagement. And we have to be steadfast, because we have a culture in this country and the PPP plays on that. Once you drag out issues, okay, you could calculate the Guyanese attention span may be short. And they deliberately approach those matters with that conviction in mind. So we have to always bear that in mind, and we always have to keep these matters in the forefront.
Thank you. And on that note, let me inform viewers that there is going to be a commemoration tomorrow. Yes, it's up on the screen here. There's going to be a motorcade from Golden Grove at 3 o'clock, and another one moving from the Belgium Bridge West Coast at 4, and all will be heading to number 5 village. That's the site, I understand, where a monument is being erected, or was erected, is erected for the Henry Boys.
Rose up early this morning to the sounds of crying, another mother shedding her tears.
2 years later, we remember the Henry Boys. Tuesday, the 6th of September 2022 will mark 2 years since the gruesome murder of the Henry Boys. Come join us as we remember them. Join the motorcade at 3 p.m. at Golden Grove and at 4 p.m. at Belgium Bridge, West Coast Berbice. Then to number 5 village for a live event. Speakers include Leader of the Opposition, Aubrey Norton, Nigel Hughes, and Vince Roy Jordan.
In my land, getting rich off the souls of we children. Can you tell me when will it end? I was up early this morning to the sounds of crying, another mother shedding
hurting. 2 years later, we remember the Henry Boys. Tuesday, the 6th of September 2022 will mark 2 years since the gruesome murder of the Henry Boys. Come join us as we remember them. Join the motorcade at 3 p.m. at Golden Grove and at 4 p.m. at Belgium Bridge, West Coast Berbice. Then to number 5 Village for a live event. Speakers include Leader of the Opposition, Aubrey Norton, Nigel Hughes, and Vince Roy Jordan.
In my land, get rich off the souls of we children. Can you tell me when will it end? How many more must carry this load? Oh, how many more?
Thank you. You are tuned to DAYCLEAN, the voice of the Working People's Alliance, groundings with the citizens. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam, and with me in studio are brothers Takumo Gonse and Keith Branch. Brothers, since the PPP came to office, we have seen them having this, well, even prior to coming to office, but they have certainly exhibit this wonderful relationship, as they would make people believe, with Suriname. Just recently, I think a contract was signed, or a contract is soon to be signed for a partnership in terms of constructing a bridge from Guyana to Suriname. But we're now learning that the Surinamese authorities are quote-unquote harassing Guyanese fishermen. And an agreement that was made with the Guyana-Suriname government to issue licenses, I think you call them joint licenses for these fishermen to ply their trade, is now on hold. Your reactions to this news?
Well, the bridge to Suriname, I think both in Suriname and in Guyana, it is a historical, it is something that both nations and peoples in both countries have wished for. It is something that has been in the economic and social and political discourse of the two nations for many decades. And I think objectively, in the interest of promoting economic development of both countries, in the interest of bringing the country peoples closer to one another, I think that a convenient way to get to Suriname and the Surinamese to get to Guyana is always welcome. This has been achieved by ferry. And when there were no ferry, private fishing boats, and you know the famous backtrack that we developed in Suriname, you know, for many years. So I will say that any news about building a bridge between the two countries is welcome news. And I will say that I hope we choose, and if it's a joint, as you're suggesting, it's supposed to be a joint venture between the two states. And what should be of importance to us is whether the two states put in place a mechanism to ensure that we get the best contractors available to build the bridge and that we get value for our money. That is where I will be concerned, but I don't have information on that detail, so I can't make a judgment on that detail. But as far as the bridge is concerned, the faster, the better. Now, the fish problem, or the fishermen problems between Guyana fishermen and the Suriname authorities, it's also old matter. It's an old matter. And various governments on both sides is known to have been taken in various initiatives in order to normalize the trade. I can't say that I could speak on the matter as an expert, but every country has its national interest, and I assume the Surinamese have their national interest. Every country wants to make sure that they control the extent of economic activity in strategic economic zones that fall under their national sovereignty. And I have no doubt that that is part of the issue as it relates to whether Guyanese will be allowed to fish in Suriname's waters. But I don't have the hard facts and the technical information as to why they're objecting after they reach an agreement with the government, which both sides have told us is extremely friendly to one another. So I don't know, but I am in solidarity with our fishing folks because they depend upon that for a living. And the faster the situation could be normalized, is the better for Guyanese fishing folks who depend on that activity for the economic livelihood. So I would say that we have to press both governments to act responsible. And I think both of them are members of CARICOM. And in the spirit of regionalism, understand that we can't apply a colonial doctrine to sovereignty, and that we have to have a true integrationalist spirit on these matters, that the resources in each CARICOM country, to the extent that it could help in economic development and social development in sister or brothering countries, should be made available. Because we quickly make available to extra-regional business interests access to our natural resources and our waters that we will hardly make to a fellow CARICOM country. And I think that I will want to say that this here is another test as to whether what we are told by the PPP in terms of their glorious relations with Suriname, the Surinamese authority, whether that will stand the test of time. But I don't want to be, I don't want to take a partisan political attitude and to laugh at them, that the Surinamese may be sticking them in the back. I think as a Guyanese, we have to put our national interests and the interests of our citizens paramount in our politics. And in that spirit, I stand with the fishing folks, and I hope there's a quickly resolution of the problem.
Thank you, Brother Kit. You want to comment?
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of the whole arrangement. First, look, Suriname has claimed the New River Triangle. And, we had to, the Ghana government sent the army in there to root them out. They had already set up camps and settled themselves in there until the GDF rolled in and chased them back across the river. Since then, they have been, despite which government is in office, even when Bautista was there, there was a very cordial relationship, but each country knew its limitations, and sitting right there unseen, but of major concern is the Surinamese claim on the New River Triangle. For those young ones, and there are a lot of them out there who are not familiar with it, what we call the Quarantine River, the source of the Quarantine River, Suriname calls the New River. And what we call the source of the New River, Suriname called the Quarantine River. So if you take their explanation, that whole piece there, since it's a Quarantine River, belongs to them. And it is not so. It has to do with the weird logic of ancient contracts. You know, the contract says where the river flows strongest. Well, over the years, the New River, which was a smaller river, has grown, and it is now at its source flowing as strong or even stronger than the Quarantine River, although it's not as wide. So that has been a contention. It's been settled, but it's not gone away. And therefore, I am very skeptical of building a bridge across there with the kind of government that we have in place. Past governments were very cordial with Suriname, but also very careful. This government operating like Christian converts, running without direction, talking without logic. And that's the problem we're having. I think one of the government in Suriname is what they call a Hindustani government, according to the Surinamese. And you know what happens in the PPP. That is a passport for cooperation, and that's the main criteria for sharing whatever you have, because you share the same ethnicity. And that is a problem when those kinds of factors are the main factors in creating a foreign policy and international development. Now, Santoki, I think that's the name of the Surinamese Prime Minister,
yes,
President.
Yes,
he's on very shaky grounds, and as far as I know, he doesn't control the government in Suriname the way the PPP controls the government in Guyana. And he may go meet EXXON and make promises that he can't keep because he's not in total control. Apparently, that is one of the problems that these fishermen are facing. That Santoki and EXXON made these good-natured, brotherly handshake arrangement, and Santoki goes back to Suriname and can't fulfill them. The people in the Santoki government are asking him what he's drinking. Because for the Surinamese, denying the Guyana fishermen license is not merely a question of protecting Surinamese fishermen or revenue for the Surinamese government. The granting Guyana's fishermen license has to do with with sovereignty in the Quarantine River area. If you have 1,000 Guyana fishermen fishing up and down the Quarantine River, and in areas where the Quarantine River washes, you remember that is a major factor, because is not just the river that we see, but where the river washes. And some of that Quarantine River washes all the way up the Guyana coast in Quarantine, and it's Surinamese waters. Legally, it's Surinamese waters. Therefore, those people are looking at that and say, if you give all of these fishermen licenses, they'll be in Surinamese water permanently. So there's a problem. And I think until such time as the Ghana government sit down with the Surinamese government, the Ghana foreign minister, I don't know what he's up to. But until such time as he and his colleagues sit down and draw up an agreement, not an understanding, not a handshake, not a promise to set up some company to distribute license and all of that foolishness. An agreement between the government of Guyana and the government of Suriname to issue this license, we will have problems. You know, there must be some treaty, something that governs the issuance of the license. It cannot be a handshake and thank you.
Thank you. As we approach program time, it's now 19 hours 44. That's 16 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. You're tuned to DAYCLEAN. Let's turn our eyes to the former colonial country, man, the former colonial masters for a bit. I noticed this lady, is it Tuss or Truss, has emerged as the new British Prime Minister, following the fall of Boris Johnson. Any comments on that as an international matter?
Well, I don't know the woman and her politics very much, but I know she, as a member of the Conservative Party, her politics will be influenced by that reality. The way the British work their problems out is always of great interest. It's always of great interest. I don't think that the change in leadership in the British government will have any drastic or any immediate impact on Guyana-British relations. I think that given the state of Britain itself, the economic crisis, the extent to which they have got themselves engaged in the Russian-Ukraine war, and the consequences, sanctions, you know, the Americans, you know, they have stood in the American corner as they historically done. And all of these things have been having negative effects on the British economy. And I think that she and her government major energies in the next 6 months, I think, will be dominated on domestic issues. And as far as foreign policy goes, Europe and the Ukraine-Russian war, and probably improving their relationships with the United States administration. I don't know that the Caribbean and this part of the world will be high on her agenda or our government's agenda. But we know at the end of the day, the British diplomacy and the British government do have influence in what happened in this part of the world, and in particularly what happened in Guyana as a former British colony. So yes, that continued relations, and that continued involvement we could take for granted, but I don't see the change of the government having any dramatic impact at present in the domestic politics.
Thank you, Brother Takuma. Brother Keith, at 12 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour, you care to come in here?
Yeah, as Ogun said, the change in the guard in England would not have any immediate effect on countries in the Caribbean. It may have more immediate effect on the countries in Europe. What's her name, the new prime minister, didn't have a good relationship with Europe when she was foreign minister and finance minister. She was the minister for Brexit and so on. And the Europeans are skeptical of her. So they would have a more concern about what she does than her impact on the Caribbean. What is noteworthy, though, is that her victory at the Conservative Party convention, was against two other conservatives, both of Indian descent. Many of my Indo-Caribbean colleagues were whooping it up because they named a former Home Secretary as a front runner. He was finance minister and then Home Secretary, and he was labeled as a front runner. I kept telling them that under no circumstances could I see the British electing an Indian as prime minister of the country, despite how loyal, how British that person is. Most of those Indians in the Conservative Party in England came out of Uganda. For those who are not familiar, back in the 70s, Idi Amin, who was president of Uganda at the time, expelled all the Asians from Uganda, and the majority went to England. And these two people who are running against the prime minister-elect were both descendants of that group of Indians who were deported from Uganda, or expelled, I should say, from Uganda. So the probability is that the reality is that if we want to say in frank terms, look what happened to Meghan Markle, the wife of the Prince of the Prince or Duke of Sussex, whatever they call him. They treated her like garbage, and she had to leave. Although her husband was in line to the throne, it would be worse for any Indian coming out of or even India to be treated any differently, much less become Prime Minister of England. So this woman has been elected. She still has to, I guess, go before the Queen and kneel down before she becomes Prime Minister. And she be fighting on two fronts. She has to bring the British economy around, because elections in Britain is not far away. I think it's another 2 years. So she has to show some growth in the British economy if she wants the Conservatives to retain power. She has to battle with Europe to settle some of the the uneasiness that they have since she is prime minister and she had a sour relationship with him. And she has to prepare for elections. So I think that places, countries like Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean will be far off her agenda.
Thank you. It is now 7 minutes to program time, and so Brother Takuma, Brother Kit, if it is you have anything to introduce that we haven't touched on, or you can choose to go straight here to your closing statements.
Before we close, I must say that I must extend congratulations to the young women and men who did well in the CSEC. And I wish them all success in their future endeavors. For those who weren't so successful, I hope that you have a chance to write the exam again. If not, find something that you can do. Business, start from somewhere. The world is open to you, and all money belongs to you. Take it and start a business.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Brother Ogan?
I want to say once again, thanks to the residents of Golden Grove and the surrounding areas who came out in their numbers to attend the APMU plus AFC WPA rally. Again, the villagers turn out in their numbers, demonstrating that they are in a state of political readiness. And I pay careful attention to some of the interactions between the people and the platform. And there are certain things that in my judgment is becoming clear, and it will be difficult for the opposition having go to that village, given its present level of political consciousness and awareness. It will be difficult for the political opposition to go back on, let us say, something like the voters list. I think the entire meeting was with the platform that we must have a clean and a new voters list. And I think that embrace by the people of Golden Grove was consistent with the embrace by those who attended the rally in Georgetown at the what we call the parade ground. I'm missing the up-to-date
Burnham Court.
Burnham Court, yeah. Both rallies, if no other issue, put aside that the PPP must go, because that is without question among our constituents. But in terms of the immediate issue and the immediate political engagement is the voters list. And on both rallies, we could say that the opposition got the authority of their supporters to fight this matter with all the energies and to invest big political capital to ensure that we have a clean voters list or no elections, be it local government elections or national elections. And that is one of the things I was paying careful attention to. There are other things, but for me, you always have to try to keep your eyes close to the masses' response to issues that has to be addressed currently, and that can't wait. And I think that is the most current issue we have to face as a political opposition, apart from the day-to-day challenges. And for me, the people have spoken. So I was very satisfied. I think the platform generally was well, but I want to go to my way to highlight Comrade Kemraj engagement of Kisun. I mean, he stripped Kisun naked. To put it shortly, he stripped Kisun naked. And I was glad that he, as an Indian leader and a person who have brought his services to Kisun when Kisun most needed, when Bharat Jagdeo was threatening him, with lawsuit and threatening him to take away his property, threatening, that he got support from Kemraj. When the case was called in the court, he had asked David Hinds to stand as a witness, and David Hinds stood up as a witness in his defense. But today, Kisun, the put in Guyanese storm, have become ungrateful. 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 But I think Kemraj did an excellent job at reproducing Kisun's own articulation and analysis of the racist behavior of Jagdeo and the PVP government. He had argued that Jagdeo is an ideological racist. And he prevailed in court. He prevailed in court to the extent, in the sense that Jagdeo decided to meet and have a settlement rather than to have a trial. So he prevailed. But he prevailed with the help of Kemraj and people like David Hinds, who today he's cursing in the worst way. They are the worst human beings ever exist on planet Earth. And he, the PPP and Jagdeo are the angels. So I was happy that Kemraj on the platform took him on.
Brother Ogun, shame is a human quality. Freddie Kisun has no shame.
I agree.
And with that note, I say to you, it's now program time. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in tonight, and do join us next Monday for another program of DAYCLEAN. Join me tomorrow in the morning for a program of Buxton in the morning time, and Dr. Hinds in the evening for Politics 101. Do have a great day and stay safe. Thursday morning, I'm going to be getting Mark Benchcup. We're going to be talking with Mark Benchcup on Thursday. And Dr. Hinds certainly tomorrow, certainly on Wednesday. And Mr. Winston Jordan, former Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, is not going to be on tomorrow, but we're going to have a ball. We're going to be rocking and rolling. So join us tomorrow morning for another program. Do have a great evening, y'all. Stay safe. Protect yourself from monkeypox. And keep those people, the residents of Beirut and Dazel Housing Scheme and any other areas. I haven't been told of any other area. But a freak storm in the course of the day. Certainly destroyed a number of houses, dwellings in Dazel and Beirut. Roofs were taken away and so on. And so keep them in your prayers. I understand that the CDC was alerted and some kind of preparation is being made to help out the situation down there. But like I said, keep them in your prayers. And those of you who might find it within your hearts to lend them assistance in any way possible, you can do so. Have a great night.